March 2026. Satellite imagery confirmed what Israeli intelligence has feared for 8 years. Iran's underground missile cities are fully operational. Not one facility, not two. 15 separate subterranean complexes buried under 500 meters of rock across 6 provinces, each one capable of storing, maintaining, and launching ballistic missiles without ever bringing them to the surface. And here's the detail that should make every Israeli defense planner resign immediately. Israel cannot reach them. Not with bunker busters. Not with F-35 strikes. Not with anything in the current arsenal. The missiles are underground, the launch systems are underground, and the targeting data that would be required to destroy them doesn't exist because you cannot target what you cannot see. Let me explain what an underground missile city actually is. This is not a reinforced bunker. This is not a hardened silo. This is an entire military installation carved into solid mountain rock. Tunnels extending 15 to 20 kilometers into mountainsides. Storage chambers large enough to house 50-ton mobile launchers. Ventilation systems that prevent detection through thermal imaging. Command centers protected by 500 meters of granite that no conventional weapon can penetrate. And rail systems that move missiles from storage to launch positions without ever exposing them to satellite surveillance. Iran began construction on these facilities in 2004. 22 years of tunneling, reinforcing, and equipping sites across the Zagros Mountains. The locations were chosen specifically for geological advantages. Mountains with solid rock composition that doesn't fracture under explosive impact. Elevations above 2,000 meters that make ground assault logistically impossible. Remote areas far from population centers where construction could proceed without Western intelligence detecting the scale of the operation. The United States knew Iran was building underground facilities. Satellite imagery showed tunnel entrances. Intelligence reports confirmed construction activity. But the assumption in Washington was that these were weapons storage sites, places to hide missiles from airstrikes, not operational launch facilities. That assumption was wrong. Iran wasn't just hiding missiles underground. Iran was building an entire missile force that operates permanently below ground. January 2026. Commercial satellite imagery from Planet Labs captured something that Israeli analysts initially thought was a sensor malfunction. A missile launch from central Iran, not from a mobile launcher on the surface, not from a known military base. The launch plume appeared to originate from inside a mountain. The missile, a K-bar-Shikan medium-range ballistic missile, traveled 1,400 kilometers and impacted a target in the Iraqi desert with 5-meter accuracy. Iranian state media released footage 12 hours later, not of the impact, of the launch facility. A massive tunnel complex with a retractable roof section that opened allowed the missile to launch vertically and closed again within 90 seconds. The entire launch sequence from missile erection to roof closure took 4 minutes. By the time Israeli satellites repositioned to image the launch site, the roof was closed, the thermal signature had dissipated, and there was no visible evidence that a launch had occurred. That demonstration was not for domestic propaganda. That was a message for Israeli military planners. We can launch missiles from locations you cannot strike, and you will not know a launch is coming until the missile is already in the air. Here are the numbers that matter. Israel's GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the largest bunker buster in the Western arsenal, can penetrate 60 meters of reinforced concrete. Iran's missile cities are buried under 500 meters of solid rock. The physics are simple. The weapon does not have enough kinetic energy to reach the target. You can drop every bunker buster in the Israeli inventory on the same spot, and you will not penetrate 500 meters of granite. The rock absorbs the impact, fractures locally, and the facility 400 meters deeper remains undamaged. The only weapon that could potentially destroy these facilities is a nuclear bunker buster. The United States developed the B-6111 nuclear earth-penetrating weapon, specifically for deeply buried targets. Yield options from 0.3 to 340 kilotons, designed to burrow into rock before detonating, creating a shockwave that collapses underground structures. Israel does not possess this weapon. And even if Israel did, using a nuclear weapon against Iran would trigger responses that make the current conflict look manageable. Israel's operational options against these facilities are not limited. They are non-existent. Airstrikes cannot penetrate deep enough. Ground forces cannot reach remote mountain locations defended by Iranian air defense networks and terrain that prohibits armored vehicle access. Sabotage operations require intelligence on internal facility layouts that Israeli intelligence does not have. And even if commandos somehow infiltrated a facility, destroying it from inside would require explosives measured in tons, not kilograms. The result is a missile threat that Israel cannot neutralize. Iran can store hundreds of ballistic missiles in facilities that are invulnerable to Israeli attack. Those missiles can be maintained, fueled, and prepared for launch in complete safety. And when Iran decides to launch, the missiles emerge from mountains, fly their trajectories, and impact their targets before Israeli defenses have time to respond effectively. Let's talk about what's actually inside these facilities. According to defector reports and commercial satellite analysis, a typical Iranian underground missile city has 5 functional zones. Zone 1, the entrance tunnel, 200 meters long, 15 meters wide, reinforced with steel and concrete. Designed to collapse under attack, sealing the facility but leaving the interior intact. Multiple facilities have secondary entrances located kilometers away from the primary access point. Zone 2, the storage chambers, caverns carved from solid rock, each one large enough to house 20 mobile missile launchers. Climate controlled to prevent propellant degradation, radiation shielded in case of nuclear storage. Zone 3, the maintenance bays, where missiles are assembled, inspected, and fueled. Equipped with the same diagnostic equipment found in surface-level military bases, but protected from aerial reconnaissance. Zone 4, the command center, hardened against electromagnetic pulse, connected to Iran's integrated air defense network, capable of coordinating launches across multiple facilities simultaneously. Zone 5, the launch rails, tracks that move missiles from storage to vertical launch positions beneath retractable roof sections. The entire movement process is automated. Human operators are not exposed to surface surveillance during launch procedures. Iran operates 15 of these facilities. The locations that have been identified through satellite imagery are in Semnan Province, Isfahan Province, Kermanshah Province, Loristan Province, and Hormozgan Province. Each facility is positioned to provide overlapping coverage of strategic targets. Facilities in western Iran can reach Israel, Turkey, and U.S. bases in Iraq. Facilities in southern Iran can reach shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz and U.S. naval forces in the Persian Gulf. Facilities in central Iran provide strategic depth, backup launch capability if forward facilities are somehow disabled. The missile inventory stored in these facilities is extensive. Ghadir-1 ballistic missiles, 1,600-kilometer range, 750-kilogram warhead. Sejil-2 solid fuel missiles, 2,000-kilometer range, designed specifically for rapid launch from underground positions. Khaybar-Shikan, 1,450-kilometer range, high maneuverability during terminal phase. Emad, 1,700-kilometer range, guided re-entry vehicle with precision strike capability. And the Fatah-2 hypersonic glide vehicle, 1,400-kilometer range, Mach 15 speed, the weapon that Israeli air defenses cannot intercept. All of these systems can be stored, maintained, and launched from underground facilities without ever being exposed to Israeli surveillance or attack. The strategic implication is a fundamental shift in the regional balance. For 40 years, Israel maintained military superiority through the capability to strike any threat before it became operational. Iranian nuclear facilities could be bombed. Syrian weapons depots could be destroyed. Hezbollah rocket stockpiles could be targeted. The assumption was that Israel's air force could reach any target that posed an existential threat. Iran's underground missile cities break that assumption. Israel cannot reach them, cannot destroy them, cannot prevent them from launching. The threat exists, is growing, and there is no military option that neutralizes it. Israeli defense officials are not discussing this publicly. The talking points remain focused on Iron Dome success rates, Arrow 3 capabilities, and F-35 technological superiority. But behind closed doors, the conversation is different. The conversation is about a missile threat that cannot be eliminated through preemptive strikes, about an Iranian capability that changes the cost-benefit calculation of any Israeli military operation against Iran. Because now, every time Israel strikes Iranian targets, Iran can respond from facilities that Israel cannot destroy. The retaliation is guaranteed. The escalation cycle has no off-ramp. The economic dimension of this reality is equally devastating. Israel has spent $18 billion on missile defense systems over the last 15 years. Iron Dome batteries, Arrow 3 interceptors, David's sling radars, all designed to shoot down incoming threats. Those systems work against rockets and conventional ballistic missiles. They do not work against saturation attacks from multiple underground launch sites firing simultaneously. Iran can launch 200 missiles in a single salvo from facilities spread across 1,000 kilometers. Israeli defenses can intercept perhaps 60% if everything works perfectly. The other 80 missiles hit their targets, and Israel cannot retaliate against the launch sites, because the launch sites are invulnerable. The mathematics of unsustainability are clear. Israel's interceptor stockpiles are finite. Each Arrow 3 missile costs $3 million. Each David's sling interceptor costs $1.2 million. Iran can manufacture Ghadir-1 missiles for approximately $500,000 each. The cost-exchange ratio favors Iran 6-1. Iran can afford to keep firing. Israel cannot afford to keep intercepting. And when the interceptors run out, the missiles start landing. Every time. The United States cannot solve this problem for Israel. American bunker busters face the same penetration limits. American intelligence cannot provide targeting data for facilities buried under 500 meters of rock. American defensive systems are already stretched thin protecting U.S. bases across the Middle East. An American political will to engage in a direct military confrontation with Iran over Israeli security concerns is not what it was 20 years ago. The nuclear option exists. Israel could threaten nuclear strikes against Iranian cities unless the underground missile facilities are dismantled. But that threat carries risks that Israeli leadership understands clearly. Iran has its own nuclear program. Iran has regional allies with missile capabilities. And Iran has demonstrated the willingness to escalate when threatened. The nuclear threat from Israel might not deter Iran. It might accelerate Iranian nuclear weapons development and trigger a regional arms race that leaves Israel less secure, not more. What remains is a strategic problem with no solution. Iran has built missile capabilities that Israel cannot destroy. Those capabilities threaten Israeli cities, military bases, and critical infrastructure. And the threat is permanent because the facilities that house the missiles are invulnerable to conventional attack. Israeli military doctrine is built on preemption. Destroy the threat before it becomes operational. That doctrine just failed. The threat is operational. Israel cannot destroy it. And there is no tactical adjustment, no technological innovation, no operational plan that changes this reality. Iran's underground missile cities are not a future threat. They are operational now. The missiles are underground. The launch systems are ready. And the next time Iran decides to strike Israel, those missiles will emerge from mountains that Israeli forces cannot reach, fly trajectories that Israeli defenses cannot consistently intercept, and impact targets that determine whether Israel's economy, infrastructure, and population can survive sustained bombardment. This is not speculation. This is the operational reality that satellite imagery, intelligence assessments, and Iranian demonstrations have confirmed. The missiles are underground. Israel cannot reach them. And there is no defensive counter that makes this threat manageable. The balance has shifted permanently.